Hey everyone, my name is Gabriella from Spirit Child of the Moon. I wanted to record a little November forecast for you all on all the astrological transits that are taking place through the month of November because there are so many shifts and changes happening and it's absolutely intense for so many of us. And I thought I could hopefully offer some advice to anyone who's just wondering what is going on out there right now and how they can kind of navigate this as easily and smoothly as possible. Um, First up for the month, we're still only a few days into the month, and already there's been a huge amount of change this week. So, first up is Uranus. Uranus has been in the sign of Taurus since May 2008 this year, and is actually now going retrograde as of yesterday into the sign of Aries, where it has been before May in the house of Aries for 7 years. Now, what does this actually mean? So, Uranus is typically the sign of unexpected change and just changes in general. And in the sign of Aries, it was very much pushing us to look at the way we work in the world in terms of ourself and identity and self-love, but also in terms of kind of war and violence and greed and these kind of negative aspects of the sign of Aries. And then shifting into Taurus, it was a whole kind of new energy which is focusing very much on the environment. We've seen a number of earthquakes and volcanoes and typhoons and so much kind of earth energy that is shifting and changing to kind of release maybe negative energy that's been stored in the earth for all this period of time. It's also looking at things like the financial sector, and there'll be changes and shifts that will happen and unfold over the next 7 years. This retrograde period is a bit of a break from the Taurus energy that we're going to have over the next 7 years and kind of gets us to look a bit deeper into that Aries energy and work through things that are still unresolved. So there can be a lot more kind of, how I will say, like a light bulb or like a torch that's kind of shining on all the elements that sit under the house of Aries. So yeah, things like war and violence, this is going to be something that is going to be up for review for us to look at as a collective. What's not working about this kind of way of being anymore? Greed and kind of the way that corporations work and organizations and patriarchy and all these kind of things are going to be up for discussion and change, so that when we shift into Taurus in March next year, we're going to have really had some resolution from that Aries energy and getting ready for the new things that will be brought in by that Taurus energy. So that is one shift that has taken place already in the first week of November. Today, November 7th, we have the new moon in Scorpio. Now, I don't know about you, but back end of October and certainly this period of November is quite intense. We've got probably nearly 4 planets that have been in the sign of Scorpio at the moment, which is all about depth and kind of those murky waters of discovering kind of those things that make us feel a bit uncomfortable, maybe delving into our darkness or the things that we try to hide from people and the things that make us feel uncomfortable, like our fears and inner core wounds. And this new moon is kind of like this chance to heal but also manifest kind of what we want out of what we've learned from some of the previous transits that I will go into in more depth shortly, such as the Venus retrograde, for example, which has been in Scorpio for the final 2 weeks of October. And so, or even longer than that, sorry, since the 5th of October. So yeah, there's it's an opportunity to look at relationships. It's an opportunity to look at the way you earn money and investments and finance and things like this. But also, more importantly, it's an opportunity to look at your self-worth and kind of where you might have been giving your power away, where you haven't actually valued yourself enough, and how this is an opportunity in the next couple of weeks where what you've learned, especially through the Venus retrograde period, and believe me, there's been so many learnings for me personally about that, how we can put that into practice and how we can take that forward and almost saying goodbye to an old part of yourself, the part that you really need to let go of and just move forward into a new phase. And I mean, I've talked about it on my blog as well and also on my Instagram that we look outside, we look to nature and the leaves are shedding kind of the summer and their life force, and they're kind of getting ready for this new cycle. And it's kind of like all this Scorpio energy this year has been designed for us to shed what no longer serves us as well, and kind of ultimately step into a higher frequency and a higher identity, which is going to serve us, but also on a global scale going to serve the collective so much more positively in the long run. So in addition to that, today, on the 7th of November, there is also a huge shift, an 18-month transit, where the North Node of Fate, the North Node of the Moon, is shifting from the sign of Leo, where it has been for the last 18 months, into the sign of Cancer. Now, this is going to have a huge impact on us. Not only is the North Node going to be in the sign of Cancer, which represents the future and this lifetime and kind of fate and the things that we need to be all moving towards for the betterment of life. The opposition to that is the South Node, which is very much about the past, and kind of like there can be good lessons from the past, of course, but actually it's moving our dial away from that sort of mentality and that way of being, and that is in the opposite sign of Cancer in Capricorn. So for the next 18 months, not only will all the eclipses from this period up until when it moves over into another sign, into the sign of Gemini, we're going to experience all the eclipses in this kind of dual opposition between Cancer and Capricorn. What does that mean for us? So we're kind of shifting away from this lovely, vibrant Leo energy, which is all about love and expression and passion and joie de vivre and all this kind of extrovert behaviour and just kind of connecting and being proud of who you are and shining your light. And finding out who you are, I guess, yeah. We're now moving into a very feminine, very nurturing, very compassionate, the archetype of the mother, intuitive sign of Cancer. And what this means for us at the next 18 months is that we have to really, really, as a collective, embrace that divine feminine, because that is what we are having to shift into. That is what our sense of purpose, that is where we need to head for positive change to commence. And it's very much moving away from that old Capricorn fatherly way of being, certainly with patriarchy, and I talked a bit earlier about corporations and how they work, political systems and how they work, and all these kind of things that are now a bit outdated. It's about, for not just females but the males out there, to also embrace their inner divine feminine, which is going to bring more peace, it's going to bring more connection, it's going to bring more relating, it's going to bring more heartfelt, pure kind of energy. And this is something that I'm really excited about. I think that is needed, and it's great that all the planetary energy is kind of aligning with what's going on certainly like a higher consciousness level, which of course makes sense. The future is the divine feminine, I've written down here. So this is kind of where we're at for the next 18 months, and let's see what comes up on a wider scale in the media and things like that. Maybe there's going to be a lot more kind of feminine power roles kind of coming to the fore publicly, but also internally. Women are stepping into their own power, and this isn't a battle of competing against men and patriarchy. It's about finding balance with obviously something that the scales have been quite one-sided for the last, many years. So I've talked about the new moon in Scorpio. What else have we got? Oh, guys, I'm so excited for the next one. So as of tomorrow, as I said, there's so many shifts and transits happening right now. As of tomorrow, we have the lovely fire sign in Sagittarius moving into the house of Jupiter, the planet of Jupiter. So this is a transit that is about 13 months of the year. And we, as I said, have been in very Scorpionic energy the last couple of months. And the last year, Jupiter has been in Scorpio in the 8th house, which is all about unveiling secrets and intensity and intimacy in relationships and the dark side of things and kind of uncovering of things and money and other people's money. And certainly if you look at the media and the Me Too movement and kind of everything that happened in Hollywood with kind of all these people that came out of the woodwork, and even things about the slavery and the uncovering of that, and also the children in America by the border who'd been locked up in cages, like all these kind of things that for sure have been happening for decades, even longer, hundreds of years, let's say, kind of came to the surface for the public to be aware of. And I think that it's been intense, both on a personal level. It's made us look inside ourselves at like what we need to change, where we need to grow, where we need to move away from, kind of what isn't serving us anymore, and how we can change. And it's moving into the sign of Sagittarius, which is actually the home of Jupiter. Sagittarius is at home in Jupiter, which means it's kind of like a double dip of positive energy, which is absolutely fantastic, and it's going to feel so much lighter and more positive. And I mean, Sagittarius is the sign of risk-taking and adventure and long-distance travel and philosophy and law and religion, and Jupiter is the planet in about luck and growth and expansion, and so these two energies combined are going to mean we're going to feel a lot of lighter energy and a kind of more passionate and adventuresome feeling about us for the next 13 months, which will take us to December 2nd next year, 2019. I'm certainly really excited about this. I think there's been so much watery energy, so much earth energy, and this throughout all the retrogrades of the summer, this is almost like the light at the end of the tunnel that is just going to feel like a big breath of fresh air. And I can't wait to see what's going to come, because I think certainly for myself, who's a first born Aries in terms of the free splits within a transit within one sign, we're going to feel it initially. So it can mean lots of long distance travel, it can mean connecting with people from abroad, it can mean going back to study. There's all sorts of things that it can really affect. So yeah, bring it on. Basically, it's nice to have a bit of that fire lightening the load of all of this watery energy. Then on the 15th we have Mars, the planet of war and drive and kind of get up and go, is moving into the sign of Pisces, which is not its natural or comfortable kind of state. And this kind of counterbalances all this lovely Sagittarian energy, but it kind of makes us look at our creativity and how we express ourselves in an emotional way to get what we want and to move forward. So it's kind of like a different type of energy. It's not, I mean, Mars is at home in the sign of, say, Aries, for example, a fire sign. So water is a little bit more, okay, this is different. Let's see how we can go about things in a different way. And maybe, again, it's like more of that feminine way, more compassionate, more sensitive. Pisces is the most spiritual sign of the zodiac. So it's the last sign before you head up to the heavens and stuff. So it's kind of connecting our drive with something a little bit more spiritual, and maybe that's going to be part of like a transit of growth for all of us as well. Venus, which I have touched on at the beginning of this, is moving out of retrograde, hurrah, on November the 16th. This has been a transit that's taken place since the 5th of October. It has been intense. I think everyone has probably been feeling the Venus retrograde vibes. It has been a full overhaul in how we relate to not only others, be it in partnerships with work, but also romantically, but also the relationship we have with ourselves. And it's been making us kind of delve deep and find out how we can love ourselves based on the mistakes that we make. And sometimes when we really need love from someone else, that's an opportunity for us to go inside and love ourselves, because we're not always going to get it from the external. And often it can mean it's a period, certainly the first transit in Scorpio was bringing back people from the past to teach you further lessons. That certainly happened for me and my experience. And yes, I definitely feel like I've learned the lessons, and definitely feel I've had like a lesson in value. And kind of this period now in Libra has really cemented that for me, and now I feel like it's about putting it into practice and kind of having my boundaries set and knowing what I want but also what I deserve, and I don't expect anything less. And I do feel like this is such a profound transit that actually is going to take things forward to, well, for the rest of my life. You know, it's not something that is like, oh, I learned a few things and then it's like go back to the way you were. I mean, obviously that's an option for people, but for me, I feel like this was actually profound and has had some deep changes which were really necessary at this time. Then on the same day, because there's no rest for us, Mercury will track back retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius. So again, Sagittarius, which Jupiter is moving into, is already in Mercury now. So Mercury's already in the sign of Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is notoriously a very brash, very bold, very outspoken, very impulsive sign. They can sometimes have a bit of foot and mouth syndrome where they'll say something super honest, super like direct, but it's not as sensitive. So Mercury, which is the house of communication, as well as travel in terms of short distance and communications and technology, I should say, is moving retrograde, which kind of means it's a time of reviewing and refreshing and just like reworking things. So projects maybe can go on hold or there's a bit of delay, but that's no bad thing at the same time because it gives you a chance to look a little bit deeper into things you're working on. And for Sagittarius, it can be a bit of a shift again. It's like, okay, you're normally brash, you're normally outspoken, but how can we do this or express ourselves in a much more loving way, a much more sensitive way, while still expressing our passions and our desires and our wants, but in a way that's not really gonna rock the boat. It's not going to upset people because we don't want to do that, guys. Like, we don't want to upset people in our expression, but we have to speak honestly and we have to speak openly, but it can be done in a much more loving and sensitive way. And again, it's that whole, we've got the fire energy this month and we've got the water energy, and it's the combination of the two, and how do they marry up and how do they balance? And it's almost like the sensitivity of the water, the compassion, the love, the fire, the passion, the boldness of the fire, and how they can gel in some way. And obviously there's going to be a bit of clashing as well, inevitably, but what we can learn from that clash. Then on the 21st, we have the Sun moving into the sign of Sagittarius. So we're going to have then at this point quite a number of planets in that Sagittarian adventurous energy, and we're going to really feel that. And I think Jupiter's going to be even accentuated more by this Sun moving into Sagittarius. And that's going to be, so that's going to be, it will feel much more positive, I've written down here. Then on the 23rd, of the month, there is a new moon in Gemini. Now, Gemini is the exact opposite sign of Sagittarius. What this house represents is about communication. So Gemini is very communicative. It's kind of about groups and kind of meeting up with friends and connecting with community, and there'll be a lot of energy around writing and talking and public speaking and this kind of energy. On a flip side, Gemini can sometimes be too in their head and trying to overanalyze things and getting a bit stressed out about that and getting a bit ungrounded and unbalanced. So it's kind of remembering to connect to that heart, to take that beautiful energy forward in a much more healthy and balanced way, rather than like scattered or stressed out or over worrying about things that you just don't need to spend your energy on. And then finally, for the month, we've got November 24th, where Neptune, which has been retrograde for quite some time now, is moving into the sign of Pisces, which is its home sign. And basically, this is probably the most spiritual placement for Neptune. It's at home in Pisces. It's all about spirituality when it's positive and higher consciousness. Negatively, it can kind of be about illusions and fantasies and deception. And so now with its energy direct, we're able to see where we've been like leading ourselves down the wrong path, trying to fantasize about things that aren't really true. And kind of when that happens, you're kind of harming yourself in the long run. So it's kind of giving you that clarity to see, okay, what am I attaching my energy to? What do I need to let go of? What is reality? What is an illusion? And move forward on that basis. So, as I said, there's a lot of kind of very, very spiritual transits happening, very emotive transits happening. We're moving away from the deep transformational rebirth and death sort of energy around Scorpio. We're still moving into a very watery, sensitive, more compassionate, more feeling, more loving and peaceful watery energy with Pisces, in both Neptune and also Mars. But then we've got this light-hearted, fun, captivating, risk-taking Sagittarian energy in 3 planets as of tomorrow. So yeah, it's that combination of how they'll gel together. Also, Sagittarian energy, one thing to note, the negative side can be kind of overconfidence, like so confident that you're willing to take a risk that is actually dangerous, or so confident that you're willing to shut down good advice from people who know what they're talking about because you believe it's your way or the highway. So that is something to watch out, and hopefully that all this lighter, sensitive Pisces energy will help kind of dampen that a little bit. But yeah, I hope that has helped explain the extent of what is happening in November. November is going to be a huge month for us. There's going to be so much happening. There's going to be so much magic, so much surprises. Get ready, guys. Like, I cannot wait to see what unfolds in December. I cannot wait to see what obviously we experience on a wider level, but also personally, there's so much that I think is going to happen in this month ahead. So, yeah, good luck. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe if you feel called to, and I can't wait to continue sharing with you my insights and yeah, just knowledge about astrology and so many other topics. So thank you guys.